Every ship needs a captain and every team needs a GM, and teams, like ships, generally have a destination and are supposedly going there, or they can perpetually end up at the bottom of the ocean. And since we're going with an extended metaphor on boats and captains, these horrible GMs piloted their ships right into icebergs, and their teams still have never, ever recovered. Here are the 5 worst GMs of all time that ruined franchises. And before I day, one thing I want to state before we get into roasting these scurvy dogs is that these GMs might not be the worst GMs of all time, but they did leave behind damage to their franchises so extensive they still haven't recovered to this day. You'll see what I mean, matey. Number 5, Bill Bavasi, Mariners. How Bill Bavasi got hired to manage the Mariners after screwing up the Angels before is a mystery to me. However, from 2004 to 2008, the Mariners were an absolute joke, despite having bloated payrolls in the top third of MLB teams and never once having a season with more than 88 wins. Some of his notable screw-ups include signing an arthritic Big Sexy to a 4-year, $50 million deal, which saw him in years 2 and 3 hit just above the Mendoza line and a total of 32 home runs, and trading away Carlos Guillen for Ramon Santiago. In 2008, Bavasi's M's went 61 and 101, and Bavasi was fired. However, since then, the Mariners have been mediocre at best and wasting Felix Hernandez on sub-500 teams and tacking on more years to a 16-year playoff drought. I should tie something in with the Mariners and this pseudo-nautical theme I have going for this vid, but really, Bill Bavasi sucked. Number 4, Scott Laden, Knicks. When you think of terrible Knicks GMs, you might think butt-slapping Isaiah and the Zen Master come to mind, but really, it was a guy before them that set this failboat away from port. That man was former Utah Jazz GM Scott Laden, who strapped an anchor heavier than the boat itself and pushed it over the edge in the form of awful, backloaded contracts and horrible, horrible trades. Let's examine the cargo here. He traded away franchise legend Pat Ewing for a washed-up Glenn Rice, traded Eric Strickland for hot garbage Othello Harrington, drafts Nene, trades him, traded Marcus Camby for a gimp Antonio McDyess, re-signed Allen Houston for way above market value, and Houston would never play again. Then backloaded deals that put the Knicks $77 million in the cap hole, and then he traded those contracts away for even bigger cap hits. The worst one picking up Keith, look at me, I'm getting dunked on Van Horn for Latrell Sprewell. By the time he was fired in 03, he handed the wheel of a sinking garbage barge to Isaiah and said, "She's all yours." Terrible. Number 3, Mike Milbury, Islanders. Islanders fans probably cry at the fact that Mike Milbury was their GM not just for one day, but for like 11 years. What some people don't know is that Milbs was actually originally hired as just the coach, and during the ownership turmoil between John Pickett and John Spano, Milbury ran wild with a slew of dumb moves fueled by the new owners dumping in cash. So there are so many dumb moves Milbury made, I can only highlight the really obvious ones, and most of them involve goaltenders and terrible trades. Let's start with his inexplicable hard-on for Rick DiPietro, whom he drafted number 1 overall in 2000. Mind you, the Isles already had Bobby Lou, and Danny Heatley and Marian Gaborik were in the draft. Because Milbury created a shrine to DiPietro in his breakfast nook, he traded away Chris Osgood. He signs Alexei Yashin to a ridiculous 10-year, $87 million deal. He trades away Bobby Lou for nothing, and of course, straps the albatross that was DiPietro's lifetime contract to Isles fans' necks in the form of an unheard of 15-year contract to the off-injured Tendy that Bobby Bonilla definitely approves of. DiPietro would blow out his knees before the ink was even dry on the document. And that, of course, might not even be his worst move, as in 2001 he traded away Zdeno Chara and a second-round pick for the aforementioned Yashin. The second-round pick ended up being Jason Spezza. To this day, Isles fans still suffer from these dumb moves, even though Milbury was fired nearly 10 years ago. Fuck you, Spano. Number 2, Matt Millen, Detroit Lions. Few GMs are synonymous with ruining franchises like Matt Millen is. What's also amazing about Millen's tenure is how long it actually lasted. In a 7-year period from 2001 to 2008, Millen made bonehead move after bonehead move in completely messing up the Lions like meth does to teeth. Though he is known for his horrible drafting skills, which I will cover, Millen was a horrible evaluator of head coaching talent, hiring Mike Martz, underqualified Marty Morningwig, and completely washed up Steve Mariucci. And to cover his horrible draft picks, which Millen seemed to always have since the Lions went 31 and 81 with him at the helm, include Joey Blue Skies Harrington, Charles Rogers, who never met a drug he didn't like, passing on Steve Hutchinson to take Jeff Backus, and of course Mike Williams, who was completely unnecessary. It seems like they already had millions of wide receivers, including Calvin Johnson, which any idiot on earth could have drafted. Millen was finally fired in 2008, leaving the team like a smoldering pile of feces for the next era to take over, where they promptly went 0-16 and have been mediocre to terrible since. So much damage done by one dolt, it's amazing. And even more amazing, he's not the number one on the list. Number 1, Sam Hinkie, 76ers. If you were to watch a ship getting blown in half and sink to the bottom of the ocean and call that anything other than a ship sinking and resting on the ocean floor, you would be an idiot. However, Sam Hinkie has a name for this and called it the process. And for any of you who thinks the process is working, just what is the Sixers' current record? And if you think intentional tanking is some kind of valid strategy, that's fine, but Hinkie wasn't even good at converting his high draft picks into anything meaningful. Joel Embiid is Greg Oden 2.0, Michael Carter-Williams was a bust, Jahlil Okafor isn't lighting the world on fire, and as these horrible moves were made, which included gifting Andre Iguodala to the Warriors and not drafting Steph Curry, the Sixers put up historically bad seasons, which included 19-63, 18-64, and a reverse 96 Bulls at 10-72, and a merciful 13-page resignation by Hinkie after 3 intentionally awful years that still has them nowhere near playoff level after 5 years of this process, which is ironic because they actually were a playoff team in 2012. Somehow he is still president of basketball operations for those of you who say you have to let him see the process through. But I know one thing, a ship that takes on water doesn't magically fix itself. It just sinks. And a bonus now, the real number 1 on the list, every GM of the Cleveland Browns. Since the re-expansion, I don't really need to list out their failures or the like. I simply need to list their names and the years they were in charge. Ah, Cleveland, you make us feel so much better about ourselves. Ahoy, mateys. Full steam of tanking ahead.
You are a factory of sadness!
Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to leave a like, comment, and of course subscribe. And don't forget to download the FanDuel app and use my code Touchdown87 and get a free entry into the NFL Sunday Millions contest. I'm 5 Points Vids, and you made it to the end of this video.